Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. This is round number 2 this season, coming to you tonight from Indianapolis. My name is Ron Mullins, all by myself in the commentary booth tonight. We've also got Jonathan Grabowski working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler. The second round of this already exciting championship here for Season 10 is upon us at Indianapolis, a racetrack which is kind of controversial in the world of motorsports. This internal road course of one of the most storied venues in the world of racing, originally constructed back in 2000, of course, host of the United States Grand Prix from 2000 up until 2007. It's hosted IndyCar events on this exact layout ever since 2014, but tonight we got GT3s running around here, and we got a lot of GT3 cars running around this racetrack as well. 14 corners in all make up this Indianapolis Motor Speedway Roval configuration, and at 2.44 miles, it creates a really intriguing ride in the world of motorsports, and I have a feeling the racing action tonight is certainly going to prove that this track, despite being maligned by some, still can put on some pretty exciting racing. But we're not talking about the racing just yet, even though these cars are right by each other at the moment. We're in qualifying right now, an open 10-man long session for these drivers to get the job done. And when I say drivers, we have got a heck of a lot of them. 42 cars running around this track here this evening and taking it to the racetrack for this qualifying session as it stands at the present moment. 10 minutes for these drivers to try and get the job done, and let's see who can do well. In the opening race of the season at Daytona 1 week ago, there's plenty of drivers proving themselves to be some rather worthy adversaries to keep an eye out for all throughout this season. And one of the main drivers that I'm certainly going to be keeping my eye on is this man, Corby behind the wheel of the number 8 Eternal Racing Audi, is heading his way through the final chicane section right at the end of this lap. But Corby kicked off the season in style 1 week ago at Daytona with a win in the pro category, and here at Indianapolis looking to continue on that same form that he had in not just the first race of this season, but pretty much the entirety of last season as well. Corby was brilliantly quick in the GT3. So those who didn't tune into last season here from the Operation eMotorsports Racing League, we ran LMP2 cars and GT3s. He ran in the GT3s, and he was stupidly quick and stupidly consistent consistent all throughout the season. So Corby looking to continue that performance here this season. But as you can see, it's currently Ian Carney on the provisional pole as it stands at the moment, the beneficiary driver who won the opening race of the season in the Ben category at Daytona. He is your current provisional pole sitter, a 1 minute 24.892. But as it stands at the moment in this qualifying session, as these drivers are getting their lap times on the board, I feel like we should talk a little bit about everything that goes on behind the scenes at Operation Motorsports and tell you a little bit about the organization itself. Operation Motorsports is a veteran-led and operated 501c3 nonprofit foundation based in Raleigh, North Carolina and Bryan, Ontario, Canada, serving American and Canadian service members and veterans. Operation Motorsports is based on 3 core values: team, identity, and purpose, and supports the recovery of medically retiring or retired service members affected by military service through motorsports opportunities. Operation Motorsports' motto is one at a time. So if you ever see hashtag one at a time, now you know that behind that hashtag is a wonderful cause supporting veterans. Veteran recovery opportunities utilizing motorsports opportunities, veteran recovery opportunities and still a sense of team, identity, and purpose, veteran recovery opportunities through the lens of diversionary therapy, motorsports immersion, and academy programs, veteran recovery through motorsports one at a time. You can visit operationmotorsports.org to learn more. And for season 10 of the Operation Motorsports eMotorsports iRacing League, we are excited to kick off another incredible year of racing action here for 2025 and kick off this season. We've got something very special for these drivers. New for 2025, we are proud to announce that Operation Motorsports beneficiaries racing in the Pro Beneficiary and Beneficiary categories now have access to virtual coaching using Trophy.ai services. This partnership is designed to help these incredible competitors refine their skills and become even more competitive on the racetrack, all while boosting their confidence at the same time. This initiative supports eMotorsport's Diversionary Therapy program, which creates a thriving, supportive community for medically released service members, medically retiring service members, and veterans with a service-connected disability as recognized by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs or the Veteran Affairs of Canada. It's a space where participants ranging from active duty to veterans can come together, train, and race in an exclusive virtual environment. This season, we have 15 Operation Motorsports beneficiaries competing, and we couldn't be prouder to have them on the grid. We would like to thank Trophy.ai for their support of this season of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League, and we'd also like to thank CrowdStrike and Michelin for their continued support of Operation Motorsports. But as it stands currently, more drivers setting lap times on the board with over 6 minutes on the clock, and as it stands currently, it is not Corby on your pole in the GT3 category. It's Chris Walsh in the 104 McLaren. He's currently holding on to the provisional pole in the Pro GT3 category. My apologies there, folks. In the Open GT3 class, it is not this man of Manning, who's currently slotted P2 of the Open GT3 drivers. It is actually your current P3 overall qualifier of Jacob Little in the number 74 Mustang, who's your current Open GT3 pole sitter, doing so at a pretty quick lap time as well. So let's see if Jacob Little will be able to hold on to that overall starting spot between now and the end of this qualifying session. Right behind him overall currently is Ian Carney, who as it stands currently is your Ben GT3 provisional pole sitter, and in Pro Ben GT3 is Gregory Meismer, currently holding on to the pole in that class. 2 drivers running in the Pro Ben category, that being Gregory Meismer, who as it stands currently is qualified 6th overall, and Tyler Gilmette in the number 5 Corvette, who finds himself 11th at this very early point of tonight's racing action. But I'll tell you what, we've got someone joining me in the commentary booth, someone who was in the commentary booth last week, who's usually meant to be a driver in this series, but joined me in the commentary booth last season as well. Mr. Charles Bushell is with us on this broadcast. Charles, thank you for coming in, because I feel like if I talked even more viewers would decide, hey, I don't want to listen to this kid anymore, bang, exit out of YouTube.
Well, Ron, thanks for having me in. And every good service member will have some more stories that they're really willing to tell. So I'll just give you mine. I jumped in the session and had massive load cell brake failure as soon as I got in the car. My pedals are completely gone. So no driving tonight. And so I guess I'll just come in and chit chat with you. And I guess I will say also, Matthew, congratulations. I think his partner is expecting, who I got to work with last week, and so that's the reason he's not here tonight. But hey, it's all right. I get to come up here and hang out and talk about this race, which is just about it, almost as much fun as actually driving it.
Yeah, these races last season were fantastic to be on the broadcast with you here, Charles, so I have a feeling that continuing that same trend throughout the season is going to be the name of the game. And you mentioned a very good point. Our pal Matthew Duffin not going to be joining us on this broadcast here tonight. His partner is currently in labor at the moment, so we wish the Duffins nothing but the best upon the arrival of their firstborn child. So congratulations, Matthew, and the whole Duffin family, and hopefully everything goes well with that here this evening. Actually, I believe it's very early morning in the UK for him, but regardless, we hope nothing but the best for Matthew. And at this point in time, I'm trying to get a grips through this season because, Charles, you were my replacement last week as my voice completely blew out because of a sickness I had. So this is going to be a very fun experience for me trying to get a grips to this brand new season of Opmo as you come in here and give me the ropes as we're still in this qualifying session.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Some things were a little different. Some things stayed the same. Corby Oil dominant again last week. Just had a great run. We had a little, the battle for the pro bins between Greg Meismer and Tyler Gilmet did not work out. Tyler had some issues early in the race and kind of put him on the back foot. So what we were expecting to see, because they were very tight in qualifying at the beginning of the race. So we'll see if that comes back to pass. And then Ian Carney in the bin category had another great win last week as well. So a lot of the same things we saw last season transpired again last week. So we'll see if we can get some a few more battles. But I will say another great grid tonight, over 40 cars, fantastic turnout. Really love seeing that. And as we see the bin class, still just the two pro bins with Meismer and Gilmet, and then Carney setting on pole for the bin, O'Connor in second, McDade, Duke, and Solana. So some new names as well as some old hangers around, and so looking forward to a fantastic race tonight.
Yeah, and this is going to be a good one. Just the second race of this 9-race championship, where we're going to be going to some absolutely brilliant racetracks. Of course, went to Daytona 1 week ago, running at Indianapolis here tonight. We've got Road Atlanta in 1 week's time, Laguna Seca for round number 4. We're going to be hopping over the pond to go to Brands Hatch for round number 5 of the season on March the 4th. Then we've got not Brands Hatch. Following Brands Hatch, we've got Watkins Glen. Following the Glen, we've got Road America, and then we've got CTMP and VIR to round off this fantastic season of races left from this championship. But I think instead of focusing on the rounds that we've got coming up, let's focus on how things are shaking out in this qualifying session right now. It's still Walsh holding on to the Pro GT3 pole. Chris Walsh still holding on to the pole both in class and overall as well, but he's now being joined on the front row by a driver who I have some experience commentating on and actually doing some race control with as well. It's Ken Copeland in the number 30 Mustang. He's currently slotted in P2. That's a very good lap time for the Texan.
Yeah, absolutely. Great lap. I was doing some practice last night with the guys in a hosted session, and 24 mid 24s is a fantastic lap. This is it's a pretty difficult little circuit that Tony Kanaan helped kind of revitalize a little bit, and very difficult to find your way around sometimes.
And these drivers are going to be tackling that difficulty as best as they can in this 45-minute long race that we have coming up. And here is the starting grid. Chris Walsh going to be grabbing the pole position in the aggressive Salmon 104 car. A very funny team name, but not very funny performance. He is going to be a quick driver that we have to keep tabs on all throughout tonight's racing action. He's going to be joined on the front row by the number 30 Wrong Stuff car of Ken Copeland. Corby All going to be starting this race in third, looking to continue on his form in the number 8 Eternal Racing car. He'll be joined on that second row by Jacob Little in the number 74 car. Ian Carney will start this race in 5th alongside Tyler Manning. And we have Robert Schwankler, Copeland's teammate, going to be starting down in 7th alongside Gregory Meisberg grabbing the pole in the Pro Ben category. Rounding out your top 10 is going to be Martin Wallace in the 666 ZFG Racing car alongside Gene Kelly in the number 41.
Yeah, absolutely. Started in 11th, Rodney Campbell. Brandon Mateo in P12. Brian Burkhart in 13th. Tyler Gilmette in 14th. Joshua O'Connor in 15th. Peter McDade in 16th. Scroll down, 17th. Nolan Uke. John Salata in 18th. Kyle Smith in 19th. Dave Bell in P20.
And looking through the drivers we have outside the top 20, we got Tyler Reed starting this race in 21st. Billy Old going to be starting alongside him P22. Richard Davenport will find himself starting 23rd at the drop of the green flag. Dustin Wells will start alongside, rounding out your 12th row. Then looking through, we've got Anthony Calvi starting this race in 25th. Matthew Taylor starting in 26th. Starting this race in 27th is going to be the number 12 car of Kyle Shelton. Starting alongside him P28 is Brandon Leonard, the Canadian. Brandon Potts will start right behind another Brandon in 29th, and Luis Rios will round out your top 30.
Yep, 31st, Ryan Cilione. Chandler Baker in P32. P33, Dan Fendick. Matt Ayot in 34th. Rui Farina in 35th. Bryce Fontaine in 36th. Cameron Albernian in 37th. Philip Chartier in 38th. Some pleb in 39th who was not be driving tonight. That would be me. Elliot Whitfield in 40th, and then rounding out the rest of the grid, we have Christopher Puglisi and Cody Durkin on your final row, row 21, and there ends up clears up our 42 car field. Sorry about that.
We got a massive pack of race cars, and we're able to get through all of them right as they're starting up this formation lap. So I think we made some very good time there, Charles, before the drop of this green flag. So we've been doing pretty well about timing stuff thus far, and I gotta look through to see. There's one driver that I would like to keep tabs on if we possibly can. Not sure if Chandler Baker is on track at the present moment. However, he is tonight's beneficiary spotlight. Served with the United States Air Force on tours in Kuwait, Iraq, and Syria. He was born and raised in Deering, New Hampshire. He grew up in a racing lifestyle as a result of his father's interest in racing and vintage his father's interest in racing vintage BMW motorcycles. That's pretty cool. Growing up, he enjoyed watching NASCAR, IndyCar, and MotoGP races. His initial inclination was to either become a driver or a motorsports broadcaster. Hey, I think that sounds like a pretty good career if I do say so myself. Early experiences in karting were fun, but he learned he might not have the pace needed to continue. Thus, he switched his focus to broadcasting during his time with the United States Air Force. Chandler auditioned to be a broadcast journalist and spent part of his enlistment DJing for the American Forces Radio Network at his assigned bases. Upon medically retiring from the United States Air Force, Chandler landed a corporate communications role with Verizon Frontline, the dedicated network for public safety and first responders. So I gotta say, Chandler, tuning into this broadcast, started off in karting, then moved into broadcasting. I will not compare him to me for the simple sake that I feel like that is a fate worse than death, but that's kind of how things went for me. Kind of start off in go-karting, then realized that my back simply could not do it anymore and switched off to broadcasting. But that is our spotlighted beneficiary driver this evening. Chandler Baker in the number 23 ZFG racing car will start this race a little bit farther towards the front, so let's see how things shake out for him in this 45-minute long race that we have coming up. That pace car has made the turn to come down pit lane. The field now in the hands of both of our front row sitters. It's going to be Chris Walsh in that 104 McLaren starting this race at the front of the field. Ken Copeland in that number 30 Mustang will join him on the front row, and let's see how that treacherous run into turn number 1 is going to go. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way, and as they gun through the gears, it's going to be an even kill start with both of our front row sitters, Copeland and Walsh, going to be side by side heading down that start finish straightaway into the braking zone of turn number 1. Walsh on the inside line, Copeland on the outside. He's going to have to back out of it before they head off into turn number 2. Walsh grabbing the lead, some side-by-side racing a little bit farther in the back, and contact being made. That's going to send Tyler Manning off in the number 14 McLaren. It was contact with himself and I believe Greg Meisber in the number 75 Porsche, spinning him around, heading through turn at number 2. But at the front of the field, it's Walsh in front of Copeland, in front of all.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of little dust-ups there, but for the most part, pretty straightforward opening lap there, as we're about halfway through now. But, turn 1, as you saw them fan out 3 wide, 4 wide, going down that turn 1 as we're going to replay here. We're on board here with Tyler Manning. We'll see what the actual issue is here as we're working through turn 1 and running into turn 2. Yeah, that's the 74 car of Jacob Little, and it just looks like Tyler maybe just cut a little bit deep to the inside, and there was a car already there.
Yeah, just close quarter stuff heading through that first chicane section, which all throughout the years, ever since this Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course was first built all the way back in 2000, that first chicane section has always been a trouble spot for drivers in real life and in the sim as well. That just proving that even in a race like this, something like that can happen again. As a big moment from Taylor in the Open GT3 category, that Corvette has spun around, more contact and drama a little bit farther in the back. That's an Audi and another Corvette involved in some drama. That was Tyler Gilmette in the Fission Racing number 5 car, spun around. He was running, I believe, in the lead in the Pro Ben GT3 class at the time. That or he was running a V2. There's only 2 spots in which he could have been running at the time, but still Gilmette with a major moment of drama heading through that final corner, as it was Taylor in the Corvette who went off the track. There's Matthew Taylor missing a front bumper in that number 55 Corvette. The air conditioning mod clearly not the smart call for him.
No, it's going to be a little aero deficient with the front end of that car missing. Yeah, from running a little practice last night, I'm going to guess Gilmette. A little contact there with Taylor. Did not see who that other car was. It was an Audi. Yes, same thing. Audi got a little loose. The Corvette of Gilmette got a little loose, and then Taylor as well. I think it's just a little bit of those cars with the cold tires just getting up to temp. So we see another car off the track, just kind of getting loose on throttle, trying to get back to that front straight.
At this point in time, these drivers hoping that this race will settle into some sort of groove. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, as I will mention a lot throughout this broadcast, it is a really tough ride in the world of racing, and trying to get yourself into a groove in a race like this is really tough, doubly so considering you have so many competitors around you. As we go back up at the front of the field and follow Walsh in that McLaren, nearly got a bump and run done on him by Ken Copeland in that Mustang right behind. Kobe lurking in the background in that Audi. So we got 3 cars at the front of the field, covered by about a second, but Walsh and Copeland really giving us a fight to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Good opening stint battle here between these 3 cars this week. A little side-by-side there, and I think that was Tyler Manning again and Luis Rios as they're working their way through this little the turn 4 chicane, if you want to call it that. Very fast little left-right. This little drag strip down into the next set of corners. Ooh, see BMW coming in deep there on entry. That's the 10 car.
Actually, I believe that was the number 17 of Richard Davenport.
There we go. So good start and some good battles all the way in the field. You see people just trying to jockey for position. Maybe didn't have the great qualifying runs, so they're kind of working their way up, as we see the 47 Ford Mustang a little slow coming out of that onto the little short chute.
And that right there was Tyler Reed in that number 47 Mustang. I think he probably picked up a slowdown going back onto the high banks, potentially coming out of turn number 10. That's going to cost him a teeny tiny bit of time, as we're now riding on board with Matthew Ayotte in the number 11 Mustang, currently running P9 of the Open GT3 drivers. However, he may have a fight on his hands with himself and Anthony Calvi. Calvi throwing the dummy his way, heading down into turn number 1. He looked for it, and understandably so, backed out of it, moves into turn number 1 in a big clunky GT3 race car. That does not go down well at all. So thankfully for those drivers, they back out of it and decide to go through that section single file, as side-by-side racing heading off into the turn number 5 and 6 chicane. involving, that right there is Ryan Silione in the number 77 Lamborghini. That was himself. Tyler Manning, I believe, in the number 14 car is that McLaren that got shoved off. And Billy Ohl, who I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, is the father of Corby Ohl. He's running in 36th at the moment in that Mercedes, running P18 overall.
Yeah, having a pretty good run, as we see the USMC Marine Corps logo on the back of the car. And the 77 diving down to the inside on this little short chute up on the high banks. And then down, able to move forward a little bit into P6 in the open class.
As we look at these drivers continuing to tackle this race at this point in time, I gotta wonder at this point in time what these drivers are really thinking in terms of how to deal with your competitors, because it's going to be a factor all throughout the day. Indianapolis not really a racetrack where you can break away from your rivals, so I'm really wondering at this point, Charles, what some of these drivers are thinking in terms of how to tackle this race, this early point of the race. We still have 6.5 minutes on the clock at this point in time, so we're not a big chunk into this 45-minute long race. However, with the hecticness of the start, I have a feeling these drivers are looking to get into that midsection of calmness a little bit early than usual.
Yeah, this track is a great track for the open wheel cars, like the Indy cars that run here. Fantastic, amazing racing. For these GT cars, a little more difficult. These cars obviously don't have quite the downforce that the Indy cars do, and with the extra weight of carrying the body around, it's these cars kind of lumber through the corners more than they just kind of dart and dash. So I think most drivers are saying, let's just get in a rhythm, get consistent, make sure you hit your marks, because it's real easy to get kind of off kilter there as you're going through some of those little chicanes and little S's sections. So you just want to be steady, and you want to be, as we see the 20 car off, and I think that's Anthony Calvi, and he has towed back to the pits. So you just want to be consistent, and you just want to get your rhythm down, and then you can start trying to battle for positions at that point.
Yeah, get yourself settled down in this race. Then you can really start looking a little bit farther up towards the front. As we see Anthony Calvi, that is a very wild off-track excursion heading down into turn number 12. That had to have been some sort of hardware failure. That looked very unnatural.
It did. It just, as we hit the 115, McLaren off. That's Dustin Wells off in the gravel. He's going to bring some of that back onto the track. He gets rejoined, and it's just coming down into turn one. It's a little wide. So far, so good. Just a side-by-side battle with that Ford Mustang, and maybe just carried a little too much into the inside there, and I think made contact with the Mustang and sent himself over into the gravel. So have to reset and get back out there and kind of reset everything and get back in the groove.
Yeah, getting back into the groove, trying to dust off your tires, your race car, and yourself, and just get back into a groove of things around this racetrack. A racetrack like this, with the relentless assault of corner after corner, lap after lap, outside the start-finish straightaway and the run down Holman Boulevard in the mid-sector of this track, really no straightaways to talk about at all, so you are constantly battling with something, either one of your competitors or just trying to keep the race car as quickly as you can and as clean as you possibly can as well. So being in a good frame of mind is really important for a race like this as well, and I really want to have a chat with some of these drivers once this race is done to kind of ask them about the mind frame that you have to be in a race like this, but more on that in a couple of moments. As we see Tyler Gilmet, the P2 runner in the Pro Ben category, he's making his way up through the running order, currently running P22 at that big moment, hang through the final corner of turn number 14 earlier on in the race, but he's trying to dust himself off very well, currently running in P22, as a big gap to himself and Greg Meismer for the lead in Pro Ben GT3. However, we still got a lot of racing left to go. Anything can happen between now and the checkered flag.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just just getting in. We'll be sitting here in about 10 minutes time. We'll be looking at at our pit stops. Just sitting in the drivers' meeting earlier. 45% tank of gas. So they basically got about a 2-lap window where they're going to have to come in at the middle part of this race. So it's going to be basically it's going to be this long train on the track, and then it's going to be another long train going in for service.
Yeah, I doubt very highly we're going to have a slow trickle of drivers coming down into the pits. It's just going to turn into an absolute flood of drivers down pit lane between now and the checkered flag. Those pit stops mandatory, so it will have to happen at some point. And one thing that I will note about pit lane here at Indianapolis, maybe it's just a skill issue for me, but I always end up speeding on pit lane on exit as we see a big snap from Smith coming out of the first chicane, does some rally action, some lawn mowing action coming out of turn number 2, and rejoins the race, currently running in 5th at the moment in the open GT3 category, which is still being led by your I nearly said by your Mercedes driver, correction, by your Mustang driver of Jacob Little, currently running P4 overall in a pack all of his own. We'll note the fact that the driver is running P1, P2, and P3 and P4 in this race. They've playing me like a fiddle as we see some drama going on at the front of the field. Walsh just spun from the lead. I was going to note how the top 4 had remained in the same spot since they took at the top of the green flag, but that has been flipped on its head as a result of this moment for Chris Walsh in the 104 McLaren. Finished P2 at Daytona 1 week ago. I was looking to try and get the upper hand over Corby, but this spin heading through turn number 13 not going to do him any favors.
I can't tell you how many times I did that in practice last night. That's a very, very difficult corner to get your speed and your braking right. And so we probably won't be the last one we see do that. But yeah, it just obviously cost him some time. He's now, about 4 seconds back of yep, there it is. It's just so much steering input, and you want to try and get back. You feel like you're going like 10 miles an hour through there. So you just want to get back on the throttle and just overdid a little bit.
Yeah, just overcooked it on gas a teeny tiny bit heading through turn number 13, and that is going to make a huge difference in this race. It's now Ken Copeland leading it overall and in the pro category. Kobe Olslot in P2, Chris Walsh rounding out your podium in the pro category as it stands at the moment in 3rd. So you can throw that point that I was going to make out the window of the drivers in the top 4 being some of the only in this field, in fact, the only in the field that remained in the same spot since they were at the drop of the green flag. So you can throw that at the window as we take a look at some of the drivers running a little bit farther in the back. This is Peter McDade in the 109 Ferrari. He is your current leader in the Ben GT3 category. He may have a fight on his hands in the not too far off future, though, as Ian Carney, running in P12 overall. P2 of the Ben GT3 drivers is only a half a second back.
Yeah, and he is trying to close that gap down. It's a little difficult. The Porsche is not really known for the straight line speed. He's going to be much better once they get back into this infield section. As we see a car around, that's one of the ZFG cars. Is that Bob Wallace? It is. Bob Wallace in the 666.
Yeah, Wallace in that 666 car, not having a good run through that first chicane. He's going to spin again coming out of turn number 2. Shows you how some overheated tires in a GT3 race car can absolutely throw off your chances as he pulls off a 3-point turn to try and get spun back around in the right direction. Let's have a look at it. It was contact.
Yeah.
Heading through turn number 1, that's going to spin him around.
Yeah, just one of those little accordion effects as you're coming down into turn 1. And he was just kind of in the middle of that, was a sandwich, and the meat in the middle of the sandwich, made the contact, spin the car around as he's climbing the curb in the inside of turn 1, loops it around, and then the overheated tires basically have no grip. And so it loops it around again. Unfortunate for Wallace, so he's going to have a lot of time to make up.
That's the thing when it comes to a GT3 race car, and again, I will preface this by saying it could possibly be a skill issue for me, but every single time I've given the GT3s their fair shot on iRacing, those overheated tires come back to bite me on the butt. You got some overheated tires in a GT3 race car, and all of a sudden, your expertly crafted machine drives like a trash bag full of mango pulp going down a flight of stairs. So it is just a complete swap-a-roo whenever you swap ends in some of these race cars and get those tires a little bit out of their comfort zones. So these drivers looking to avoid that at all costs throughout this race, as we see some side-by-side racing a little bit farther towards the front. This is involving Cilione, who's running 6th at the moment in Open GT3. That's not a battle for open position as it stands right now, as that was a move on Luis Rios in the number 10 Mustang, heading off down that start finish straight away into turn number 1. Cilione getting that move done to remain in P6 in the Open GT3s and P18 overall. We'll note he's up 13 spots from where he started in this race, which isn't even going to give him the hard charger award as it stands at the moment, as Bryce Fontaine in the number 3 Mercedes running down in 21st. He's up 15 spots from where he started in this race. Fantastic start for Bryce.
Yeah, absolutely, having some good runs there. And, they're, 18th to 22nd. There's a big group of cars that are up over 10 positions each. So this group is really worked together. They haven't really battled each other very much, and they're just all kind of climbing the ladder together.
Yeah, they're all climbing that ladder together. The real question is which one of these drivers is going to get kicked in the face as a result of following their drivers really, really close. That's exactly why I never really was too big on climbing stuff as a kid. That, and I just have the hand-eye coordination of a grasshopper caught in a weed whacker, so I am not good at any sort of outdoors activity. That's part of the reason why I'm usually behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel, as we take a look at some more side-by-side fighting, riding on board with Potts, running 10th at the moment in the Open GT3 class, and let's see, we've got Wells right behind, a battle of the two McLarens, heading down into turn number 1 through the braking zone, got Martin Wallace right in front, gonna be used as a little bit of a pick in all of this. Wells trying to get a move done to break his way up into the top 10 in class, but he runs a little bit wide coming out of turn number 2. However, Potts somehow with an even worse exit than Wells, who did the lawn mowing rally action coming out of turn number 2.
Yeah, it was a very good pass. I mean, yeah, he had to take a little bit of grass, but made the pass stick, and he's picked up that position. Now he's coming back up on Wallace, still moving forward in that plaid McLaren.
And let's see how many moves he'll be able to put on between now and the end of this race. Certainly a lot of time left on the clock. Ticking over now, 17 minutes into this 45-minute long race, and we've already seen a lot of drama. We've seen some drivers at the front spin. We've seen some drivers have really close calls heading through that final hairpin. And we've seen a lot of action thus far, and have it be known, folks, the racing action is not going to be over until that checkered flag comes out. And just because the racing action will be over from this race then doesn't mean the racing action is going to be done here on Apex Racing TV. So that gives you more reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. And as we see Ken Copeland catching up to lap traffic already. So the lap traffic dilemma, which I'm shocked we haven't mentioned thus far in this race broadcast thus far, Charles, could be a big factor in terms of how these drivers deal with this race.
Yes, it's going to play a factor as we're going here. Big spread as far as iRating and skill level and time in the seat. So it's these guys up front will be working their way through almost like a multi-class race in reality. So there'll be some passing coming up, and these drivers in front are going to have to do some navigating of some lap traffic, and that may play a role into actually who's going to end up winning this race.
And only time will tell which one of these drivers will be able to take the checkered flag in their respective classes. As it stands at the moment, we'll briefly run through your current class leaders. It's Ken Copeland leading it at the moment in Pro. Jacob Little leads it in Open. We have Gregory Meisberg leading this race at the moment in Pro Ben GT3, and McDade leading in the Ben GT3 category. Sorry about that, Jonathan. I know I burned through that very, very quickly, but that's how it's looking at the moment in this race. Coming up to 20 minutes already on the board, quickly approaching the halfway mark, and McDade got taken out from the lead in the Ben GT3 class with nowhere to go as he rounded his way through turn number 4. I'm not sure who that was spun and stopped right by the racing line, but McDade with nowhere to go in that 109 Ferrari, and that's going to take him out of it. Heavy damage on that race car. Such a shame for your at 1 point Ben leader.
Yeah, that was tough, and it was a car that was trying to get itself right on track, and I think it was a Corvette, and I'm sure we'll get a replay here and figure it out. But I think he was just trying to get himself right, and May was just in a position of where any movement he was going to do was going to cause problems. Yeah, that's what it was, and that's actually you say it was who, Winkler? Okay, yeah, in the Acura. So yeah, just tough break, and it's just one of those things that, as a driver, once you're sideways on the track, Schwinkler, there we go. Do I move and try and get off the middle of the track, or do I just stay where I am and let the cars hopefully work themselves around me? You say, yeah, just a little too much throttle there, and really not much you can do. And I think Carney actually got a little bit of that also. Had to go off in the gravel to avoid a lot of that. Just a tough break.
Yeah, a really tough break for all the drivers involved in that collision. And as you said, Ian Carney got a piece of that action as well. He is not your leader in the Ben GT3 category, as it stands currently. Carney 6.5 seconds back, so he picked up some damage as a result of all of that. Hang through turn number 4, you could see as Robert Schwankler in that 235 wrong stuff car was bounced. I'm not really sure the correct technical term. We'll go with bounced back into the racing line. Nowhere to go for Ian Carney at all. So that's such a shame for all those drivers involved in that collision. So that's going to give your current beneficiary GT3 class lead to Nolan Uke in the number 15 BMW. There he is right now, heading his way into turn number 13 at the present moment. However, he's going to be relinquishing the lead for a pit stop with 21 minutes and some change on the clock. Uke coming in from the lead in Ben GT3.
Yeah, he'll be the first of everybody to come in. So he's going to come in this lap, and he's going to have some, I see Carney behind him as well coming into the pit. So a couple of takers of pits on this lap. They'll get their fuel and get back out, and then a lot of the cars will be coming in on the next lap. We'll see another car back in the background, a Lamborghini of Ryan Cilione, also in the pits.
And let's see here, Charles, Ian Carney joining them down into the pits as well. You said earlier on how we were probably going to see a flood of racers decide to make that call to come into the pits. I'm curious as to whether or not the fact that the Ben GT3 class leader made that call, I'm curious whether or not that will sway the opinions of some other drivers in this field. As we look at a Hornets that's 3 wide and a spinner with one of the Mustangs as another car goes off the track coming out of the corner. That, I believe, may have been Taylor in the Corvette running in the Open GT3 class. Either way, lots of stuff going on at the start of this lap as Walsh coming in from P3 in the Pro GT3 category. Led this race for a decent chunk, but had a spin through turn number 13 that really cost him in that 104 McLaren. And let's see what he does. Coming into the pits now from P2 in Open GT3 is Brian Burkhardt in another McLaren, that being the number 18 car. So let's see how these drivers decide to tackle these pit stops, and let's see if that's going to begin to set a trend of more drivers making that call to pit around the halfway mark.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to set a trend. I think there'll be a large group of cars coming in for the pits this time. And I will say, you mentioned something earlier, and I was going to come back to it. The pit exit here is a little different. You're on the inside, and you're not going to rejoin the track until after turn 1. So you've got your own turn 1 corner. But the difference between the pit line here and pit exit line here and everywhere else is it's not at the end of the pit wall. You actually have to drive down a little further before you cross those green cones that you can get off the pit limiter. So I can understand why you kind of struggle a little bit with pit speeding on exit, because the cones are not in the normal position.
Oh God, the amount of times I've been driving around here on iRacing and just goosed the throttle a little bit as soon as I hit that the end of the pit wall, and then picked up a speeding penalty. I'm like, golly gee willikers, that's happened to me a lot. Very good reason, again, folks, why I'm behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel. As we look at Walsh, running in 6th at the moment in Pro GT3, rejoining the race, involved in a little bit of a hornet's nest throughout the first half of that outlap. So let's see how Walsh is going to shake out. Robert Schwankler running behind in class at the moment in P7 in that 235 Acura. Gotta say one thing as well here, Charles, and I think you could probably speak to this a little bit more since you do run a team and have a lot of those drivers running in GT3 machinery. That brand new Acura, new to the season of iRacing, I've been seeing mixed reviews on. There's been some GT3 series I've been covering that have seen a lot of drivers deciding to run that Acura, and in other events, the Acura really just has not had any use. So, care to share any knowledge that you may potentially have on the way that Acura is?
Yeah, well, we always, when we talk about GT3 racing, we always talk about horses for courses. The Acura is a very nimble car. It's very good on a tight, twisty track, like, say, Bathurst is coming up here for the iRacing special event, I think this weekend or next weekend. I think it's going to be a very good car for that track because it does have good change of directions, and it's turbocharged, if I remember correctly. So that's going to give it some benefit. But yeah, as far as straight line speed, really doesn't have the overall straight line speed like you would see with those big monster V8s up like the Mustang and the Mercedes. So, it's very much going to be a course-dependent car, but I think a lot of people always just kind of gravitate to the new car because they think that maybe iRacing hasn't BOP'd it properly, and it may be a little better overall than the other cars, and that's just because I think we've seen that before. Whether or not that happens or not, I don't know. But I think that's maybe the mindset most people look at.
And dumbing it down from my personal perspective and talking about the different engines that these GT3 race cars have, as we see more drivers make that run into the pits, including Luis Rios from the lead in Ben GT3. He's going to be joined by a decent chunk of the open GT3 field, including your leader of Little, Gregory Meismer, yet to come into the pits. Yet currently leading in Pro Ben GT3 by 1 minute and 14 seconds, as lots of drivers making that call to come into the pits, including Ken Copeland from the Pro GT3 lead. So this is real fascinating. The massive pack of cars deciding that this is a time to pit.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty much out of gas at this point. So, only 45% of a full tank. So it's time to come in and get it. And I guess my guess is that, I think all the rest of the cars that haven't pitted yet are in on this lap. So they'll all be taking fuel. Probably nobody taking tires. It looks like we do have a fast repair available. They'll be taking that as well if they've got damage. As we see the 75 car coming down, that's Greg Meismer trundling down pit lane in that very unique ZFG livery. They've done a great, I said this last week, the ZFG cars look fantastic. They're very unique, and it's, but they look great bit of work done on those.
Yeah, those paint schemes look absolutely gorgeous, as we're going to see a race in Pro GT3 between Ken Copeland and Corby. Copeland exiting right now, all already on the racetrack. So it's going to be Copeland exiting out with the race lead in Pro GT3. Got some traffic to deal with, though, so that's not all smooth sailing for the driver of the number 30 Mustang, heading his way now into the 5 and 6 chicane. It looks like he's shaking off the challenge, all exiting out in P2, and Walsh currently running at your Pro GT3 podium in 3rd. So that's how things are shaking at the present moment. I was going to mention a couple of moments ago, as we saw that flurry of pit stop activity, dumbing down the discussion of these different GT3 cars to something that's more my level, and talking about the noise that these race cars make. Gotta love GT3 racing for the strong contrast between some of these cars, like the Mustang, for instance, that just, let's listen in, they just roar past that camera. The absolute guttural heading past the camera, compared to some of the other race cars that are a bit more of a across the track.
Yeah, it's that V8 power of the Mustang versus some of these cars with the turbo V6s. Still produced, and then we've got the Porsche, which is the sewing machine with that straight 6 or flat 6 in the rear of the car. it's still, it's just a matter of horsepower. They're all homologated. They all produce essentially the same amount of horsepower, but all in different ways. Once again, that's the beauty of GT racing. You can find a car that's good for you in your driving style more often than not.
Yeah, just trying to find something that these drivers are comfortable behind the wheel of is also important for these drivers, as Greg Meismer making another call to come into the pits in the ZFG racing car that has been leading in the Pro Ben GT3 class for a monumental chunk of this race. However, that may not be the case for any longer. Tyler Gilmette, who started this race backwards after a spin hang through turn number 14, he's going to retake the lead as a result of it. Gilmette's heading down the start-finish straightaway as Meismer is going to stop yet again. There's Gilmette retaking the lead in Pro Ben GT3. At one point in time, Gilmette found himself a minute and 14 seconds back in that class, but Gregory Meismer with a heartbreaking mistake, not sure what's going on here. He's stopped at the present moment. I'm curious as to whether or not this is a penalty for Greg Meismer, but either way, Gilmette with the comeback of a century on track for a win in Pro Ben GT3 as a result of this drama involving Meismer.
Yeah, we're going to know in about 10 seconds whether or not that's a pit exit speeding, because that's a 40-second penalty, and he's about 34, 35 stopped. We'll know in just a minute if that's what the issue is or not. 40, 41, 42, not sure. 43.98. So yeah, maybe there was a penalty there. He had to come in and serve pit speeding, exit on pit exit. I'm sorry, speeding on pit exit. As we're on board here with Gene Kelly. So yeah, tough break for Greg. He had I guess this is kind of a little bit of karma for last week. Gilmette had a very rough race. Meismer ended up winning by over a minute at Daytona. So this week, the shoe is on the other foot, and a little bit of an error from Gilmette. From Meismer. It's going to put Gilmette in the lead by almost a minute now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Meismer to have that moment of misfortune befall him as some side-by-side racing heading down the start-finish straightaway involving Nolan Yuke and Joshua O'Connor. That's a battle for P2 in the Ben GT3 class, and Nolan Yuke going to get the move done heading down into turn number one in a BMW, another in a Mustang, both of which are giant chunks of race cars on four wheels, and it looked like they put on a pretty good fight, a pretty clean one at that. Ian Carney about 11 seconds farther up the road in that Ben GT3 category. He's on track for a pretty convincing win here at Indianapolis if he can hold on in the final 13 minutes, but the battle for the final two podium spots certainly hot in Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, still a great battle here. I was looking at the timing and scoring to see how Carney managed to get an 11-second gap, and it's not really sure. I mean, he had a quick pit stop. It was probably 4 or 5 seconds faster than Yuke. But that doesn't account for the full 11 seconds, so that's kind of interesting. And I also did notice that Ken Copeland came in and his stop was almost 14 seconds dead, which was 3+ seconds faster than everybody else. I know he stopped a lap later than most everybody else, but that seems like a stretch. He might have to keep an eye on him to see if he's going to have enough fuel to get to the end of the race.
And let's see if he will be able to make it to the checkered flag. And I will say, Charles, at this point in time, as we stay with the live action and right on board with Robert Schwenkler in the 235 car, I'm currently doing a little bit of investigative journalism to see exactly what went wrong with Greg Meismer from the at one point lead in Pro Ben. His race has gone down like a rock. He currently finds himself P2 in class, 56 seconds back of Tyler Gilmette. As there you see Robert Schwenkler barreling into turn number one. That's not a good strategy call at all for him. And spinning around is that Mustang that he made contact with. Not entirely sure who that was, but Schwenkler coming in like a bat out of hell into turn number one.
Yeah, that might have been Matt Ayotte. I wanted to just get a replay here. Yeah, the 11 car of Matt Ayotte. Yep. In front, as we said, Acura coming down and just way late on the brakes. I don't think he was going to make that corner at all. I think that was just a little bit of a mistake by Schwenkler there. Just a little too deep going into turn one.
And I will note, as I've done my investigative journalism now, to see what happened to Gregory Meismer, it's the thing that's caught out many an iRacer, including myself. He let go of that pit limiter button when he hit the end of the pit wall and picked up a pit lane speeding penalty. He didn't even back out of it, too. He crossed that pit lane speed line going about 70 or 80 miles an hour. So full commitment, credit due to Meismer for just going for the send. However, those speed cameras from Race Control, they're thirsty for some of these drivers' races.
They are indeed, as we're now on board with O'Connor running second. Has worked their way around. I think that was Elliott Whitfield in the 78 Corvette. Having a good run. He's kind of stretched out a gap over Uke by about 0.8 of a second or so. So that Mustang looks like he's got some power under the front of that front of the car, and starting to stretch his legs a little bit.
V8 power running in this race. V8 horsepower, never going to do you any wrong. Well, unless you're running at a quarter-mile dirt track, in which that may be a bit terrifying, but, that's neither here nor there. That still sounds like a little bit of fun. The dirt sprint car, one of my favorite cars on iRacing, but that's probably a discussion for the late Apex, which you can catch every single week here on Apex Racing TV. I say that knowing fully well that Sam Fitzpatrick and David Sampson, if those two have driven a dirt sprint car in their iRacing careers, like have driven it extensively, I will eat a shoe live on the air. That's how confident I am. As we're seeing Ken Copeland certainly feeling confident about his chances. 4.7 seconds now, the gap to himself and Corby. Corby, as much as we were talking about him being incredibly dominant, likely throughout this season, this is going to be a little bit unnatural for him, because last season he was absolutely dominant in the GT3 cars during Season 9 of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. But here for Season 10, it's not getting off to the dream start that he probably had in mind. We're saying this as if he's gotten off to a bad start. Won the first race, on track for a P2 result here in the second. So it's not all doom and gloom for Corby. He's still probably got to be in the championship lead.
Yeah, it's just odd to see him not in first place. So yeah, it's a little bit different. But I mean, still obviously running P2, still strong. If you got an 8-second lead over P3. It's just Copeland seems to have the measure of them tonight, as we got Ford leading 2 classes, Corvette leading the Pro Benz, and then in the bin we got a Porsche in the lead. So 3 American makes leading in 3 of the 4 classes.
I will say, as it stands at the moment, the inverse of the 3 out of 4. We've got 1 out of 4 drivers, as it stands at the moment, who would grab their second win of the still very early on season, that being Ian Carney. But I'll hold off on that point in a couple of moments, as we see a battle for the final spot in the top 5 in Open GT3, involving Smith and Leone, one in a Porsche, another in a Lamborghini. Both these race cars screaming, heading down that start-finish straightaway over the yard of bricks a couple of moments ago into turn number 1. Leone trying to get that move done on Smith in that number 22 Porsche, and it looks like he's able to get the move done. Ryan Leone successful in his attack in the number 77 Lamborghini, but still not over yet. Kyle Smith looking to get that inside line move done, heading through turn number 4. It's going to be a drag race between these two, hang down the Holman Boulevard in a couple of moments time, and let's see, Leone gets that move done. That is now 19 spots gained for Ryan Leone in this race. He's not the hard charger, though, as Bryce Fontaine, who we mentioned earlier on, he's up 20 now. So lots of drivers cutting their way through the field like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a great run. Still 7th in class, but up 20 positions since the start of the race. So having a fantastic run. I guess the qualifying wasn't up to what he would normally do, and or he would be up challenging for the lead possibly.
Yeah, potentially. I will say, though, that's a rather impressive performance regardless for the driver of that number 3 Mercedes. The Mercedes, I'm a little bit shocked that's as popular as it is, based off the fact I believe it is now one of, if not the oldest GT3 car, which is really saying something, because in my first stint on iRacing back in about 2019 and 2020, I had the old Mercedes, and I was shocked when I got my iRacing subscription re-upped once I was able to set a sim rig up again. The fact that Mercedes was moved over legacy content, and now they're talking about this current new Mercedes being part of the old dogs in terms of the GT3s right now. But either way, that Mercedes still being wheeled up towards the front end of Open GT3, currently running 7th of the drivers in that class as it stands at the moment. As we go back to the action involving Stilleone and Smith, those two cars still covered by about 0.4 of a second, with that gap closing. Smith, and that's bodywork hanging down the back straightaway. What in the world went on there?
Not sure, but I see where it belongs, and we see a Corvette right over there on the side of the track. I'm not sure who that was. Could not catch it. It looks like Elliott Whitfield is off the track, so I think that's his rear quarter panel off the car. And I was thinking about the age of the Mercedes. It's the second oldest. The old Mercedes would have been the oldest, but obviously it got the Evo kit in 2020. But I think the Lamborghini actually is the oldest of the cars out on the track now.
And still, I mean, all these GT3 race cars that we've got right now are pretty freaking sweet looking. I remember when the Ferrari was introduced into iRacing, and so we could see some wall scraping coming out of the frontal corner in that camera shot. Holy cow, the concrete dust getting flung up into the air. I'm not entirely sure if that's safe for us to breathe in here in the commentary booth, but hey, it's probably not as bad as the hot air that comes out of my mouth whenever I'm on a broadcast, but that's neither here nor there. But the point that I was going to raise, talking about that Ferrari, I remember when that got introduced into iRacing back in 2023, and I remember myself and Sam Fitzpatrick covering the Apex Racing League GT3 trophy, having our jaws on the floor from how pretty that car was looking. Ever since then, we've had the brand new McLaren come out, which I think is one of the sleekest looking race cars that you see, not only on iRacing, but in the world as well. You've also got that awesome sounding Mustang. You've got the slick looking Corvette. You've had so many brand new GT3 and GTP and just sports cars, period, added into iRacing over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's been fantastic to see all these new cars come out. And there's still some, and there'll be evolutions of these cars as they're still in constant talk about potentials for other makes to come on board, especially in GTP. Ford talking about revitalizing their GTP program, and so that'll be interesting to see how that works out. And see. But yeah, just tremendous at the wealth that we have here. Like I said, there's always a car that's going to suit your driving style if you want to get in one of these, and you'll find one that you like. I promise.
I have a personal request for iRacing, and if I said this back in 2023, I feel like iRacing, even if they heard, they probably would go and pound sand. But I think I'm going to turn this into a genuine campaign that I'm going to have on any broadcast I'm a part of, which may include an iRacing broadcast at some point this year with all the official broadcasts and all the stuff that they're going to be having around. I think we need an Evo version of an iRacing staple, that being the VW Jetta TTI. That would be fantastic. Imagine the memes that would come out of a refreshed VW Jetta. I remember one time on a broadcast about 2 years ago at this point here on Apex Racing TV, mentioning the fact that the Jetta had the only dodecahedron steering wheel on iRacing. It's not perfectly circular. It has about 50 sides to it. You can see it's a little bit jittery. I'm trying to think now. What was the VW Jetta one of the original cars on iRacing when it first came out back in 2008? I probably was just barely potty trained when that car came out. So if anything's gonna need a refresh, I think a refresh, an Evo version of the VW Jetta TDI, that would be an iRacing moment to never forget.
Yeah, I think you may be right, and I don't know that that's ever going to happen. But yeah, that would
be worth a shot.
Very, very interesting. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. That would still be very cool to see that. That or I guess there would be no point bringing in an Evo version of the Solstice, considering that Pontiac went the way of the Dodo Bird. The slowest era, producer Jonathan chiming in. I will say one thing as well about the Pontiac Solstice. If anyone's seen it in like the car view in terms of, I guess it's a garage feature on the iRacing UI, the Solstice looks like the biggest car in the world, point blank period. The thing looks like a giant, despite the fact it's just basically a shoe on wheels. But I think we'll stop this discussion of talking about the old cars on iRacing, some of the absolute memes that come out of those cars. I kind of wish now that I'd actually covered some more races with the VW Jetta, because that thing is absolutely fantastic. There's also a photo somewhere deep in the archives of my computer that I made talking about the VW Jetta back in 2020 of just a giant plume of smoke coming out the back of it when I was driving it once, and a intentional misspelling of a fake ad that I put together for the VW Jetta. But regardless, we're coming to the end of this race. I believe Ken Copeland is going to be taking the white flag this time by to begin what is probably going to be a formation winning lap for him in that number 30 Ford Mustang. He has been virtually flawless thus far, as Corby in that Audi hasn't really shown the pace to contend with Copeland, and Walsh had that mistake early on, and ever since then he has not really been able to make up the ground since.
No, it's just been once Copeland's kind of got his rhythm going, he's kind of stretched out. He is getting a little lap traffic in front, and that is allowing all to now more quickly make that gap up. It's 3.5 seconds. He's already gained a second since they've crossed the start-finish line. So it's a matter that Copeland is, I'm sure, trying to take his time and be safe to get through this, but that BMW that's in front of him is definitely slowing him down.
And I'm not sure that will be too bad of a deficit for Ken Copeland, but it's definitely a tad bit frustrating come time for the end of this race. The fact that gap is continuing to diminish between himself and Corby. Thankfully, though, he's coming to the checkered flag in a couple of moments on for Ken Copeland. It's going to be his first win of this 9-race season, and to do it, he had to beat a driver who won last time at Daytona, and also withstand the challenge and avoid the spinning car of the driver who finished P2 last time out at Daytona. For Ken Copeland, though, in that number 30 Wrong Stuff Mustang, he's going to have the right stuff here at Indianapolis, going on to the start-finish straight away for the final time to take the checkered flag as your winner here at the Brickyard. Ken Copeland wins it here at Indianapolis. Corby going to finish 1.8 seconds back at the end of this race in P2, a little bit closer for comfort than he probably wanted, but still the checkered flag regardless for Copeland. Looking a little bit farther in the back and following your leader in the Open GT3 category. That's Jacob Little in the number 74 Mustang. Got this race started off with a bit of contact heading through turns number 1 and 2, but ever since then it's been flawless for the driver of the number 74 Mustang. He wins it in Open GT3. Looking a little bit farther in the back, it's going to be Brian Burkhardt finishing right behind him in terms of overall position, and right behind him in class as well. There's a checkered flag for him. That completes your podium in Open GT3 with Burkhardt and Manning, the duo of McLarens. Looking a little bit farther in the back and following Tyler Gilmette in the Pro Ben Corvette. The number 5 car started this race backwards, and he's got Enditz taking the checkered flag for his first Pro Ben win of this season. There's a checkered flag for Tyler Gilmette. He's your winner. And looking in the beneficiary GT3 class, Ian Carney in the number 54 Porsche, gonna be the only driver to go for back-to-back wins, continuing on the form he showed at Daytona 1 week ago. Carney grabbing a second checkered flag here at the Yard of Bricks. Yeah,
great run by Carney. Just 7-second gap over O'Connor. So the Porsche in the Ben GT3 category takes the victory. Congrats to all of our class winners. Tyler Gilmette gets a little bit of a satisfaction of getting a good result this week over Greg Meismer, as we got our race results up now.
And we have got the race results up for what was a brilliant night of racing action here from the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. To all of you tuning into this broadcast here on Apex Racing TV tonight, we hope you've enjoyed all the racing action. If you have, how about you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. At the end of the action, it's Ken Copeland taking the overall win and the win in the Pro GT3 category. He wins it in the number 30 Wrong Stuff Mustang. Corby going to finish right behind in P2. So that's going to be P1 and P2 from the 2 races we've had thus far this season. Hey, not a bad start at all for the driver of the number 8 car. Chris Walsh going to round out your podium in 3rd. Probably a little bit of a disappointing result for him, but still a podium in class and overall certainly nothing to scoff at either. Jacob Little is going to end up winning it in the Open GT3 class. He finishes this race in 4th at the end of it. Brian Burkhardt going to finish in 5th at the end of the night. And then finishing in P6, rounding out your top 3 in that category is going to be Tyler Manning. We have Rodney Campbell finishing this race in 7th overall. Gene Kelly will finish in 8th. Tyler Gilmet ends up in 9th, winning it in the Pro Ben category as a result, and Brandon Moteo going to round out your overall top 10.
Yeah, Ian Carney wins the Ben category and finishes 11th overall. Kyle Smith finishes 12th. Ryan Ceylon had a great run, finishing 13th. Josh O'Connor finishes 14th. Martin Wallace in 15th. Bryce Fontaine in 16th. Nolan Uke 17th. Chandler Baker 18th. Brandon Leonard 19th. Greg Meismer rounds out your top 20.
We're going to go through the rest of this grid because we got a lot of drivers looking to have a chat with us at the end of this. Luis Rios finishes in 21st. Roy Farina ends up in 22nd. Kyle Shelton in 23rd. Dustin Wells ends up in 24th. Richard Davenport in P25. Christopher Polglis ends up in 26th. David Bell, and Dave Bell, my apologies, ends up in 27th. Brandon Potts in P28. Dan Fendick ends up this race in 29th overall. Philip Chartier going to round out your top 30 overall. Looking outside and rounding out your 42 car grid, we've got Cameron Audubon ends up in 31st, Tyler Reed in 32nd, Cody Durkin ends up in 33rd, Elliot Whitfield in 34th, Robert Schwenkler in P35. Lots of these drivers a little bit farther toward the back ran into issues. Schwenkler was one of them, along with Matthew Taylor. Matthew Iode is classified in 37th, Peter McDade in 38th, Billy Ole in 39th, John Salata ends up in 40th, and rounding out your 42 cars that are classified at the end of this race is Anthony Calvi and Charles Bichelle with the fantastic Olympus esports team in 42nd. That was that was some
anticlimactic to be sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like anticlimactic was probably the way my parents described my birth, but that's neither here nor there. Charles, we've got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, though, so I'm curious who you want to have a chat with.
Well, let's bring in Tyler Gilmet, the Pro Ben winner. We'll bring him into the in here. Tyler, congratulations. Last week not great luck. This week, kind of the shoe on the other foot. And Greg gets the bad luck, and you get to cruise to a victory.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even figure out I won our class until the end of the race because I didn't see Greg get the penalty. Crew chief didn't let me know. I thought I was done for after spinning on lap 1.
So what did you think about the track?
Indianapolis is not my favorite. Especially in the Corvette. I'm not enjoying either, so we'll take the win and move on to next week.
there you go. And so next week we have Road Atlanta. I'm going to tell you, if you don't like the Corvette here, you're not going to like it at Road Atlanta. So just from prior experience, but it's a good car. And so what are your thoughts? Have you had any laps on there yet?
Not yet, but I can tell you that the team is working on securing another chassis for the rest of the season. The Corvette will not be seen again.
There you go. That's like a good call. The Corvette really struggles on the curbs at Road Atlanta for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so all right. Well, congratulations, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Let me go ahead and let you at least thank some people. And I'm just flustered. I was supposed to be driving tonight, and had massive hardware failure. So I'm not. So I decided I'd come up here and hang out in the booth.
Well, we appreciate having you guys. Thanks, Operation Motorsport. Thanks for all of our competitors. These huge fields are awesome, and I hope we see it for the rest of the season. And Trophy AI for coming on. Great to have them. It's a fun product.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Our congratulations. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. See you guys next week.
And that right there was Tyler Gilmet, your winner in the Pro Ben GT3 category at the end of this race. The driver who ends up taking the win in the Pro class is Ken Copeland, who I'm going to drag into the commentary booth. Ken, welcome into the broadcast booth and congratulations on the win here at Indianapolis. Talk us through it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. This was my first race in the league. Before we do anything else, I want to shout out Operation Motorsport. Obviously, all the amazing work they do, all the amazing beneficiaries we have in the league. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being there, and thank you for doing what you do. Race went really, really well. Chris was pressuring us on the start. He had tons and tons of pace. Obviously, Colby and I were just kind of trying to hang on and see how it went. Once Colby spun, it was just trying to settle in, get comfortable, and set quali laps essentially until pit roll came up. Once pit road came up, just be smooth, hit the box, get your fuel, get out, see what happened.
And it worked out pretty well for you at the end of the day, taking the win, maybe a little bit closer between yourself and Kobiol at the end of this race, thanks to some lap traffic encounters. But I want to ask you about the run through the pits. We saw in the Pro Beneficiary class, a little bit farther towards the back of the field, the effect that a pit stop mistake can have and the rather confusing exit of pit lane here in Indianapolis. So I want to ask you about the challenge of trying to execute that pit stop as well as you could.
Yeah, Indy, it can be a little punishing for a couple reasons. Like, first off, pit lane is just so long. Pit entry can be a little dangerous if you're running anything remotely low downforce. That first initial left, obviously getting the car stopped before the line. Going in isn't super challenging as long as you practice it. I did have a little bit of an interesting route into pit lane, as I had some traffic in front that I don't believe knew exactly where pit line was. So they had their pit limiter on far in advance, but hey, safety first. On the way out, the thing you got to watch out for is there's a sneaky little white line there that makes you think you're at the end of pit road, but you're not. You got to wait for that last cone. So as long as you kind of pay attention, get in a groove, get in, you're good. Just pay attention to that exit, make sure you're smooth, make sure you keep an eye on the mirror, make sure you know where everybody is, and everything goes real smooth.
And it went very smooth for you here tonight at Indianapolis. After that spin from Walsh earlier on, you grabbed the win, you took it, and then you just ran off into the sunset. So I'm sure you're very happy about this race performance and probably looking forward to Road Atlanta in 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts heading into that race?
Oh, I'm looking very forward to Road Atlanta. I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm not the fastest person in the world there, but it's one of those tracks where whether you're racing under the car or not, it keeps you engaged 110% of the time. So I'm looking forward to Road Atlanta, and with this field, it's going to be a fun challenge, especially if we get this many cars on track.
I know from my perspective in the commentary booth, I'm really looking forward to that race at Road Atlanta in 1 week's time. That track is a classic in real life and in the sim as well. So that's going to be a classic of a race here in the Operation eMotorsports Racing League. But Ken Copeland, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth. And before we let you go and celebrate this win here tonight, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, obviously the league, Operation Motorsport, all the staff, all the beneficiaries that come out, Apex Racing TV, y'all run for so many of the various leagues I've run in. You always do an amazing job. Ron, I've seen you around. Jonathan, you're always behind the scenes. Charles, I don't know you that well, I don't think, but we're going to get to know each other, so watch out.
I think so.
Yeah, and looking forward to it. It's just an awesome experience week in and week out, so thank y'all for what you do.
And thank you as well, Ken, for joining us in the commentary booth. Congrats on the win here at Indianapolis tonight. I excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
And that right there was Ken Copeland, your pro winner here at Indianapolis tonight. Charles, who would you want to have a chat with next?
Well, let's bring our Ben class winner, Ian Carney. Let's get him in here, and congratulations to Ian. Another win here at Indianapolis. How did you find the conditions out there tonight, Ian?
It was there was a lot of traffic. I think 42 cars, I believe. Quite a few cars. More. I think we were talking in the waiting room, most ever possibly. A fantastic turnout.
Yeah, I've just been so impressed with the amount of new drivers that the league has got. It's fantastic. So we were talking about this. You know, we had 4 classes. 3 classes were won by American brands, and you with the Porsche gets the Ben class win. And Porsche doesn't seem like it's quite I wouldn't say the natural choice for here, but you managed to keep it up front all night.
Yeah, I stick with the Porsche no matter what. If it's good, if it's bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna drive the Porsche because I'm used to it. It helps me keep consistent and safe.
Absolutely.
Tonight was a different story. I think I was on 14X for like the last 25 minutes, and I didn't want that drive through, so I was driving a little conservatively.
Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Safety first, I think, is how that saying goes. So next week, Road Atlanta, and you'll obviously be sticking with the Porsche. So, how do you feel about Road Atlanta as a track?
Oh, Road Atlanta is a fantastic track. A lot of elevation change there. A lot of the S's turn, I think 3 through like 7. I think those are the most fun. Outside of the Nürburgring, I love the Nürburgring. That's my favorite track. That section is my favorite.
Well, there you go. Well, Ian, congratulations. And we'll let you give any thanks or shout outs that you want to before we let you go for tonight.
Yeah, I just want to thank Opmo, of course, and I want to thank everybody that's put this all together for us. All of the admins that helped me out with my paint this year, putting overlays on it, all you guys for helping with the broadcast, just conducting a fantastic show. I love just going back afterwards and watching this back. I just have the best time listening to what you guys have to talk about. I also want to thank 4Wide Motorsports. I think we've got 4 or 5 different teammates in here now for my team, so I'm stoked to see how everybody grows. And I'm just super thankful for this program and all of the joy and competitiveness that it's brought me.
Absolutely. Ian, congratulations. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
And that right there was Ian Carney, your winner in the beneficiary category at the end of tonight. We got some more drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, and I'm split as to whether or not we should bring in Greg Meismer, or I believe it's Nolan Uke who is joining us in the interview waiting area here as well. So, Charles, I will ask you this. How exactly do you think we should do that? I'm thinking maybe I bring in Nolan Uke and I'll let you interview the second Pro Ben driver of Greg Meismer. How's that sound as an idea?
That works for me, yeah.
Alrighty, sounds good. So we're bringing in Nolan Uke into the commentary booth. Nolan, welcome into the commentary booth, and welcome in here. And to kick off the interview, I'll just ask you how things went for you here tonight.
Tonight was a lot better race than I had last week. I decided to take it a little easier, knowing that I had the cold tires. It was a good battle. It turned out to be a great battle at the finish. Can't remember the gentleman's name, but we had a good 5-6 lap battle going to the finish. And congratulations to Ian and Greg. But yeah, it was a good race.
It looked like a very hard-fought show for a lot of you drivers up and down the grid, and that's one of the big things about Opmo, having all you beneficiary drivers in here and just getting you all the opportunity to be able to do events like that. Charles can probably speak a bit more about this, considering he's a veteran himself, and I'm just a 20-year-old who yaps about race cars on the internet. But I want to give you the floor, Nolan, kind of give you the chance to talk about what Operation Motorsports means to you.
Oh, I mean, we just don't have the time of what Operation Motorsports means to me. This organization is truly a life-changing opportunity for any disabled veteran that's out there right now. Not only do I do the eSport League, but I'm also part of the immersion program working on Meyershank Racing this year. And heck, we just finished second at the 24-hour, the Rolex 24. So, I mean, it's being around the veterans and being around the people and knowing you're not alone is just honestly, it's like after retiring from the military, it's like gaining a second family. I mean, I talk to these guys every single day of my life, so.
And I gotta say, from my perspective, just as a broadcaster, having the brilliant opportunity to work with this series throughout both this season, that is still obviously going to be ongoing for another 7 rounds, but last season as well, seeing all the stuff that Operation Motorsports does, as you just mentioned, both with the eMotorsports League and the immersion programs in real life, it's just an absolutely wonderful organization, and I am so happy that I can be a part of this series in some way, and just be able to bring this action to life for all you drivers deciding to run here in this sim. But Nolan, I will ask you about Road Atlanta in 1 week's time. That's going to be a really fun race here from the eMotorsports League. So what are your thoughts heading into that one?
I'm actually really excited to race at Road Atlanta. When we came back from Petit Le Mans last October, myself, Richard, as well as Dave Bell, 2 other beneficiaries in the league tonight, we did the actual 10 hours, so very, very much looking forward to it in the same car, so I'm comfortable there. So hopefully we can get something good next week as well.
And fingers crossed we'll be able to see you out on the racetrack again in just 1 week's time. Nolan, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
First and foremost, obviously my family for, supporting me throughout my military career, but second most being obviously Tiffany and Diesel Lauder, the individuals that made this all possible for all of us veterans. So thank you so much.
And thank you as well for joining us in the commentary booth here, Nolan. Thank you so much, and well done on a well-driven race here at Indianapolis. So happy to have a chat with you and excited to see you back out on the track for the rest of the season.
Sounds good. Thank you for the interview. Have a good night.
And that right there was Nolan Uke, your 3rd place finisher in the Ben GT3 category. And Charles, who do you want to have a chat with next?
Well, let's bring in Mr. Greg Meismer, finishing P2 tonight in the Pro Ben category. So Greg, so as I mentioned to Tyler a little bit earlier, kind of the shoe on the other foot tonight, as he had the struggle at Daytona, and it kind of came back and bit you tonight.
I turned my pit speed limiter off probably 5 feet too early coming out of the pits during our pit stop, and I made it about halfway around the lap, and I realized I had a 40-second stop and hold. Yeah, that was my fault. I had lost to myself today.
There you go. That happens sometimes.
It happens to me.
So what did you think about Indy in the GT3 car?
I hate this track. It doesn't matter what car I'm in, if I'm to be honest with you. I think the layout is terrible. I think it has no character. The flow is not good. But sometimes you don't get to choose what track you race on. You just have to adapt and conquer it anyway, right? So I feel like I was running pretty good until I had my mess up there. I think it was like 5th overall. So
yeah, you were having a good run up until that point. So next week, Road Atlanta. So you're going to be happy about that, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love that place.
Well, cool. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and I'm waiting for you and Tyler to get it together. We'll have some good on-track battles like we had last season.
I know. I haven't even seen him. I haven't even seen him on track this season. So yeah, I hope we can get something together.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg, we'll go ahead and let you go, but we'll let you give any thanks that you want to give before you get out of here.
Like always, got to thank Oppo and you guys for putting this whole thing together and making us look like professionals, even though we are who we are. And then I got to give my thanks, obviously, to ZFG, my team, and all the guys that are involved with that. We do a lot of work throughout the week, and it really helps for these things. So, yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, Greg. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.
You too, bud. Bye.
And that right there was Greg Meismer, your P2 finisher in the Pro Ben category at the end of tonight. That's all the time we've got for in terms of interviews, and that's just about all the time we've got for tonight's broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. We got Road Atlanta coming up in 1 week's time. Charles, hopefully your catastrophic technical issues will be repaired by then, so you'll be out there on the track. Road Atlanta, an absolute classic on iRacing, so I think it's going to be a fun one regardless in 1 week's time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, based on what I saw just as a quick inspection, I think it's going to be me opening the wallet and getting some new gear in here. So I'll either be on the track or just kind of hanging out and watching the race one way or the other. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can get back out there. If not, then once again, I'm driving the Corvette, so I'm not liking my chances at Road Atlanta anyway. But other than that, we'll be back in here before the season's over with. I promise.
Here's the thing when it comes to the Corvette, Charles. It may not be fast, but you're going to look cool while driving around it. So that's what matters at the end of the day. That Corvette is an absolutely cool-looking race car, and I'm looking forward to hearing the updates about the rig adventures / misadventures, whichever way you want to phrase it, when we're together on the air in just 2 days' time here on Apex Racing TV with round number 2 of the DRSCCA Sim Racing Series. If you're in the mood for some more GT3 action, how about you check out the action in 2 days' time as well from the Apex Racing League GT3 Trophy Season number 9 with round number 3 fittingly at Road Atlanta. If you're in the mood for some Radical SR10 action here on Apex Racing TV, how about you check out our coverage from the Friday Top Split 2100 GMT race at Brands Hatch this week. That'll be on Friday here on Apex Racing TV. Some Valentine's Day action with some drivers hoping to fall in love with Brands Hatch. But for this broadcast here tonight of the Operation eMotorsports Racing League round number 2 at Indianapolis, that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle, joining me in the commentary booth, Jonathan Grabowski working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, and our colleague Matthew Duffin, who was unable to join us for tonight's broadcast, and we wish him and his family nothing but the best as his partner is currently in labor with their first child. I say thank you all so very much for watching tonight's broadcast, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.